to attend. But if it happens that he attends, that will also be good as well. So I've just put on my my recording for those who would not be able to attend. But nevertheless, that will not stop us from having our class. I think still with the three of us, we can still make it happen, right?
Sorry to be wrong. Okay, you can continue. I just have to scramble and get my ashtray.
All right. Okay, so I was saying, okay, for those who will be able to join later, that will still be fine. But if they can't, then we've got our recording on. They can still access the recording, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just having an issue with my camera. So it flips on and off. Still has to be sorted by our IT. So most of the
it's back now. You can see
yes. Oh, it's back. Yeah. So it keeps doing that. Sometimes it will be on, sometimes it will be off. So just bear with me on that. If it starts flickering too much, because it distracts me as well, I will just put it off.
Cool, we'll do.
All right. Okay. So in terms of our time, Mark, I just explained to Howard what might actually happen today is that we didn't anticipate that there will be load shedding today. So what might happen is that at 12 we might actually experience load shedding. Not sure now if it will happen or if it won't. If it happens, that means we have to relog onto the same link at 2:15. So that means we would have done the first half now, and then we do the other second half after let's say at 2:15 to be on the safe side.
Cool, I'm with you.
All right. Okay, so let's quickly let me share my my study guide. Okay, so there are some specific points which I want us to discuss, and then we'll proceed on to our activities. So we'll do all the three activities today. We need to make sure that we are done, and so that at least it would also be easy for you to approach them.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so firstly, I need to start with explaining a few important topics, right? So you can see that's my study guide there. Firstly, I want to discuss with on estimate activity durations, right? So the activity duration is the number of working periods required to complete a task, right? So how does this helps us? If we're able to calculate the tasks, then that means we can also be able to calculate the duration of the whole project, or to estimate the duration of the whole project, right? Because you can simply add your the tasks to the tasks in terms of your time periods, whether it's hours or it's days, to get the total number of the period which you would need to complete that particular project. Okay, am I right to say that?
Yeah, I'm with you. It makes a lot of sense.
Yes. Okay, so we have got quite a number of methods which you can actually use to estimate these activity durations, right? So
can I just interject now? You
yes.
see, I'm getting, like, I don't know if I worked ahead because everything is related to the project that we did. Remember our project, our conceptual project. But now I've already, with one of my activities, I'm already talking about what you're going to teach us now. Where I basically said, this is the two methods that I used and why I used the one as a kind of a backup for the other. So I don't know, maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I'm working ahead.
No, that's actually how it is supposed to be done on POEs. So hence you'd find that when it comes to discussions, in most cases it's just the two of you and the other gentleman who's not here, it's just the three of you who will be participating. It's because you would have actually read ahead.
Yes.
You know what
I Googled and they asked us to do an estimate on that thing.
Yes.
And I've already done that somewhere. Now, I hope it's not going to fall against me that I've done that.
No, we will
look at it. Answered it before we get into this module, this section.
Yeah, we'll look at it together. So it's actually very good that you read ahead, because that's how it's supposed to be done. On when you are doing POE, it's not about spoon feeding. It's about you taking the
That's
what
I'm learning now.
Yes, yes. Then we guide each other, because the assumption is you already have some knowledge because of your work experience. You see.
Yeah, well, that was non-existent by me. But yeah, okay. I get it. I kind of understand how it works now, but I need to jack up,
Yes.
Cool.
All right. So let's discuss these few, and then you will tell me which one is most likely to be the easiest way to use in terms of estimating your activities. So the first one is known as analog estimating, right? So this is estimation of the activity duration, which is based on analyzing similar activities performed before. So meaning to say here, we are mainly using the basis of past experiences of similar activities to ascertain the length, how long it would take to do any particular activity. So an example which is given here is Jonas designs web pages, and previously it takes him 15 hours to complete one page. So meaning to say, if he is to come up with another activity which is similar to this, it is most likely that Jonas would actually also take 15 hours, right? And then the second method is known as parametric estimating, right? So here, work are estimated using unit costs, right? So yeah, for an example which is being given here, it takes Jenny 6 hours to install a 2 by 2 meter window. So how long do you think it would take if maybe, let's say, if using this estimate kind of estimating, how long would you think it would take if Jenny is to install 2 of these 2 by 2 meter windows?
Yeah, probably 12. Yeah.
12 hours, right?
12 hours.
Yeah. So that's parametric estimating, right? And then
sorry, Tapio, I'm sorry that I'm going to interject now because I've really gone through this. But your definition of analog estimating, I did this actually last night. So what they're saying, that is, you'll use that where there's not a, didn't they say where there's not a lot of information, or let me just go look my notes. Okay, sorry, just continue. I've got too much in my brain at the moment.
All right, okay, no, that's good. Okay, so then we have we have the third one, which is the 3-point estimating. So this method uses 3 numbers, all right? So it uses the optimistic time, most likely time, pessimistic time. So we use the average of these times to come up with the realistic time, all right? So the most like is the average of what the task will take. Remember, we used we did show you how to calculate the mean, which was the average, right? Which we said the mean is the average. So this is basically the same concept which is being used here for the most like, right? And then the optimistic time, that is the least amount it would take to do a particular time. And then the pessimistic time would be the longest estimated time. So an average of those would give us the most realistic time. Okay. So an example which is given here is Jenny takes 6 hours to install a window and Joe takes 7 hours. The mean is 6.5. The project manager will calculate the average of windows to install and multiply by 6.5 to get an average. That would be the estimated time average to complete the task. Okay, so that's the example which we are given there. Let's look at the fourth one, which is expert judgment. So in this case here now, we have to consult an expert, you know, so this is a person who has got the knowledge or the know-how or who is experienced in doing those particular activities or doing those projections in terms of time. So this person will be able to give us an estimate because of their experience and knowledge, right? So we've got an example which is given here. Laston has been managing construction project for more than 25 years. He has experience in many different builds and know how long it will take a certain activities to be completed. So meaning to say, we in this case, you would actually be relying on Laston. Laston would give you the time estimates on each activity for you to be able to come up with your projected duration of the project. Right, then we've got the last one, which is also the most one of the most common one as well. But you can use either of these. You can actually use for yourself, right? And then the work breakdown structure, which is the WBS, is used and first tasks are allocated time individually. So in this case now, you've got your work breakdown structure. And remember, on your work breakdown structure, it shows the activities of which, in some cases, your activities will build up into a task. Right, so your one task would maybe have several activities which make it one task. And so you'd calculate the time activities of each task, right? And then you add the total of those activities or tasks to come up with the total of the duration of your project. All right. So you can see. Let's look at the example which is given here. So you've got task 1, which is 6 hours, and then you've got task 2, which is 2 hours. So therefore, activity 1. So in terms of our activity 1 is made up of different tasks. Sorry for doing the reverse earlier. So your tasks would make up an activity, right? So here you've got task 1 on your activity 1, which is 6 hours, and task 2, which is 2 hours. So these two, they make up an activity 1, which is equal to 8 hours, right? So if we've got activity 1 and activity 2, assuming that activity 2 would be 12 hours, that means the total work package or the total hours in terms of us completing that project or a milestone, it will be 20 hours. So this one is simple, right?
Yep, I'm with you.
Yes, it is.
It is, right? Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect. So this is what I wanted us to discuss on methods to estimate the activity duration, right? So then I want us to go to page 90. Okay, whereby you get to develop a schedule for your project. So using network diagrams and the data which you have collected, from all the first steps which you have done, you can now use that data to come up with a project schedule, right? So this project schedule will include the start and end dates of a project, right? So this would also include the durations of the task, and it would also have the calendar dates, and it would also be able to show us the relevant stakeholders who will be participating on the schedule, right? So this schedule can be presented in many formats. So if you use Google, you would actually find that you come up with different formats in terms of how you can actually come up with a project schedule. So some they use bar charts, some they use milestone charts, some may also use network diagrams. So it depends with the audience which you are going to present the information to. And also what you'd also need to bear in mind is that you need to make sure that you keep your diagrams or graphs as simple as possible so that people can be able to understand them. Okay. Right. Then on controlling the schedule. So controlling the schedule takes place during the implementation phase of the project lifecycle. It involves monitoring the state of the project activities and their progress in line with the baseline schedule provided in the project scope statement. So once we mention control, what comes into your mind is that obviously we have to check in terms of the schedule which we had initially planned with the current progress on the project, right?
Yes.
So how is this done? And or how does this help? So it helps with determining the current status of the project schedule by comparing the total amount of work delivered and accepted against the estimates of work completed on the elapsed time cycle. So we are able to see from what we have on the plan and what we have done so far in terms of the hours, if we are tracking on progress, if there are ways which we need to improve so that we can be able to do better, or maybe if we have to come up with some correcting measures or processes so that we can be able to improve. So it also helps us with that. And it can also help us with the reprioritizing of the remaining work plan. Looking at how you have progressed, you are able to see that, maybe on the next activities or tasks which are following, this is how I'll need to redo them or to structure them in order for me to be able to meet my deadline in terms of finishing the project. Okay. It also helps with determining the rate at which the deliverables are produced, validated, and accepted in given time per iteration, okay, which is the agreed work cycle duration. So which is typically 2 weeks or 1 month, And it also helps to determine if the project has changed. We are able to see that, this is not what we had initially planned. And if there are changes, we then need to document them and the reasons why we have got those changes from the initial plan. Okay. So we have got an example here, which is figure 32, in terms of having your project schedule presentation, right? So I'm just going to simplify in terms of explaining this diagram here. So if you look at this diagram, right, it's got three sections here, right, on top here. Let me see if they added another one. Yeah, it's the 3, right? So if you look at this diagram here, so it's the top table here, it shows the activity description, right? So if you can look at the activities, there's to complete component 1, complete component 2, and then complete integration of components 1 and 2. Then you've got your, on your right side, you've got your project schedule time frame, which can also be your calendar. So this time frame can actually also be represented by a calendar. So instead of having your period 1, period 2, period 3, period 4, and period 5, you can actually have maybe, let's say on period 1, it can be represented by maybe January to April. Period 2, it can actually be represented by May to, to let's say maybe May to July, or May to June. And period 4 can be represented by July to let's say September, October, and then period 5 can be represented by October to December. All right. So so this is basically your time frame, and it doesn't necessarily need to have to be a calendar year. It can be, specific time periods depending on how your project is structured, right? So if you look at how this how this is done, they did put those which are like square, like indicators on your period 1, period 2. You see those little boxes there. You see those little boxes which are listed there. So
Yes.
if we look at them, you'll see that they are in line with what is listed in the activity description. So for instance, begin new product Z, you can see it's starting in period 1 day, right? And then complete component 1, it happens in period 3, right? And then completing of component 2, it happens in early part of component of period 3. And then complete integration of components 1 and 2. So meaning to say these two components are now being integrated, right? So the completion of that is it will be completed in period 5. You see there it's actually mapped there in period 5. And then right at the bottom, you see where it says finish new product Z, which is got that indicator there, which is showing in period 5 that we have completed the item, right? Then if you look at just below that, there's another table as well, which is also part of this whole project schedule, where it shows you the summary schedule, right? So it also got activity descriptions as well, right? So firstly, on 1.1, it states that to develop and deliver new product Z, right? And you can see in terms of how this activity is running, it will run from period 1 up until period it's showing up until period.
I don't have to read that, but the section in gray shows up until the start of period 3. I don't know, but it looks like it runs from 1 to 5.
1 to 5.
Yeah.
1 to 5, yes. Okay. And then on work package 1, which is for component 1, you can see that it runs from your period 1 to period 3, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And then you've got your work package 2, which also runs from period 1 to period 3, right? And then you've got your work package 3, which would actually have to be done in the final stages, which would run from period 3 to period 5. So remember, work package is a term which simply means your total number of activities, right? So meaning to say the sub activities which are in within these work packages. Okay.
Okay.
And then oh, sorry. Right. And then if you come to this detailed schedule, you would actually see now that it shows a combination of all the above, but it actually now shows, you know, the overlapping of those activities because sometimes you know you don't necessarily have to have completed activity component 1 for you to be able to do component 2. Some of them they actually run concurrently. So this diagram here, it helps us to see that on this design component, when it comes to work package 1, which is for component 1, there will be design of the component 1, and then they'll build the component, and then they'll test the component. At the same time, in that same time period, you can see that the work for package 2, for component 2, would have also already started, right? Which has also got its sub-activities, which also involve designing of the component, building of the component, and carrying out a test. And if you look at you know, that dotted line, you can actually see that by the time we finish with component 2, right? But by the time we finished with the testing of component 2, at that same time we'll still actually be busy with doing the tests for component 1. Can you see that?
Yep, see it.
Yeah. All right.
Just
So
interject. Is this where I remember you spoke a few weeks back, where you explained to how it is lagged in the project, and you basically said you don't have to run them one after the other. You can run them parallel as a fix to bring the project back on schedule. Is this what you're talking about? Where you can?
Yes, definitely. So this diagram is actually simply showing you, you know, the time periods at which these activities are being done, but also illustrating on the fact that it can actually be done concurrently. Not necessarily meaning that the completion time will be the same, but it can actually be done concurrently. Okay, so that's what this this diagram is showing. And as you can see, if you look at the time when they actually finish this new product, it's represented on that last diagram, whereby they get to deliver product Z, and at that moment it is confirmed as a finished product. So what I wanted you to understand is the illustration of these activities in terms of these bar graphs. You know, so when I talk of bar graphs, I'm talking of these rectangles which are within the diagram, and then the listing of the activities as well as the time period, which would also be reflecting on the on your timeline. So your time periods, which will be represented, which will be actually be representing your timeline. Okay. But you can actually, your diagram doesn't have to be that complicated. It doesn't have to be that complicated, and also it is not always the case whereby you would have your activities running concurrently. So meaning to say, it's not always the case whereby you'd have your activities running concurrently. It might actually happen that your activities, they are subsequent activities, which means one will have to be done after the other. Okay.
Yeah,
So
the one is like the one you can only start the one of the other one because the one is dependent on what happens in the previous one.
Yes, it all depends on your project. Okay. Right. So now, having discussed this, let's look at our formative activity 10, right? let's look at formative activity 10. Right. So this activity, okay, we read the project scope below and answer the questions that follow. So we've got a project objective, which is build low-costing show house for relocation of community members as commissioned by LC Mines. So meaning to say here, the objective is actually to build a show house, which will be used for for showing the community members what the houses would be actually be like. I think these because this is a community which is probably being moved by this mine here, which is maybe probably it's a new mine, and it now wants to utilize that land, and they have agreed with the community to do the operations, but on condition that they have to build the community members houses. So here this project is specifically for the show house, right? So our deliverables, a 2-bedroom finished house, which has got 1.5 bathroom. It must also have a finished kitchen and 1 living room. Okay, those are the deliverables which we need to have, which we are actually going to, which we are supposed to have. And then in terms of the milestones, which we have to cover in order for us to achieve this project. So firstly, we need to have the architectural design approved. The architectural design, it has to be approved, and that has to be done by March 5, by 5 March, right? So that's the date which we need to have completed that by. And then by March 14, we need to have completed the foundation, right? And then by May 25, we need to have done our framing, sheathing, plumbing, the electricals, the mechanicals as well. They need to be completed by then, by May 25, right? And then by June 5, right, we need to have done the exterior wall, right? And then lastly, on our milestones, by 7th of June, the final inspection of the whole building must have been done by then. Okay. So what will be, sorry about that. So what will be the technical requirements? So the house must be built according to relevant regulation. All windows and doors must be energy efficient. Exterior wall must be included and must be 1.5 meters tall. Ceiling must be insulated. All flooring must be tiles, right? And what are the limits and exclusions, right? So remember we said the limits and exclusions, these are the items which you are not going to be bothering about on this project. They are not included, right? So owners are responsible for the landscaping. LC Mine provide architectural design. So those are your plans, right? Site may only be accessed on weekdays during 8 to 6. All right. So meaning to say, in terms of our activities, in terms of our job to be done, it will have to happen between which days? Monday to Friday, right?
Yeah, Monday to Friday at 8. between 8 and
6.
and 6.
Yeah, so weekends are not included. Right. So now, bearing in mind what we have just discussed, what we have just looked at just now, develop a project schedule from the information above. Your schedule must include the deliverables, activities, and tasks listed above. It must also consider the timeframes given. Okay. So the deliverables we are already given, right? Is that correct? We are already
Yes, that's
given.
correct.
That's correct. We are already given the deliverables. And then in terms of tasks, what tasks would we have to come up with? So your milestones would actually be to guide you, will be able to guide you in terms of what activities you would need to have. Let's share some of those activities.
Okay. Obviously, on architectural design approved, we need the designs from the architecture or the building designer, and then we also need a landscape and
Okay.
a person who does landscaping who will be able to inform the designer that yes, we can build from on this land, and then we can build from here up until there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, okay, all right, just before we go any further, right, there's one important thing which I also want you to take note of. So it says here, LC Mine will provide architectural design. What's the importance of that notification there?
Means that the homeowners don't have to worry about the designs of the house,
Mm-hmm.
as obviously they'll be provided by LC Mines. They don't have to worry about the designs or the costs,
Mm-hmm.
as that's already covered by LC Mines.
Yes. Okay, yes. So, but us, in terms of this project, it means that design of that house, it's already there. So if you are the one who's embarking on that project, it means that design is already there. It's going to be given to you by LC Mine. So it means it's not going to take your time in terms of your activities. You see. But you simply need to have it been approved by March 5. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and what other activities would be involved? Because I think, sorry, I had to interject whilst you were listing some of the activities there. I think you were talking about the foundation.
Oh, on foundations, obviously, we need they need to dig and then fill the holes or build a concrete. Fill the holes with their cement so that they can be able to build concrete.
Yeah, or you can even simply say construct a foundation. That would be an activity on its own, so that at least you don't have to write up a lot of things, right? And then what would be the other activities there? So our milestones are actually guiding us in terms of the activities which we need to do.
They need to obviously clear up the plot, this vegetation and all that stuff, clear that before they can dig. And obviously, it will need to be marked out over the right dots.
Okay.
The
you mean like the landscape?
Yeah, that needs to be cleaned up before they can basically dig the holes for the foundation. So then, is that all one activity?
So for the landscaping, remember, if you look at the limits and exclusions, so the landscaping is not part of this project. It's an exclusion. So let's not include the landscaping.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
So
and this project is just for the show house, right?
Yes, for the show house. So the activities which we'll be left with, if you see, we haven't mentioned anything to do with framing, sheathing, plumbing, electricals, and mechanicals. And all these activities, they need to have been done by May 25. But is it possible that some of these activities would be able to run concurrently?
Yes, it's possible.
It's
Yeah,
possible.
definitely.
Like your plumbing can actually be done at the same time with your electricals.
Yeah.
Sheathing, I'm not sure what sheathing is. Anyone with an idea?
I'm also not sure.
I don't know what it is. It's nothing to do with the roofer.
I thought as much. I thought maybe it's like you know those uh, um metal roofs. I don't
Yeah,
know what they're
that
called.
galvanized little. I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about. Yeah, sheeting.
yeah.
They call it. Yeah, you can buy plastic ones. You can buy metal ones for the sheeting for the roof. Yeah.
Yes, I think that is what is being referred to here. And then the mechanicals, I'm not sure what that is. What would be the mechanicals on a house project, really? What would be the mechanicals on a house project?
Maybe like I don't know, the handles for the doors. The handles for the windows. That sounds
Yes.
mechanical to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking, what would be the mechanicals though for a house? Mm.
I'm also not sure. It could maybe the bucklers.
The banglas, windows. I don't know. I think any other, maybe your I don't know what would be the mechanicals. What kind of mechanicals can we list on now on
I'm
a
just
house?
googling quickly
Yeah,
mechanical.
yeah. All right. While you are googling, we'll continue with so exterior wall. So this would also have to be built. So you can actually list it as a build exterior wall by that date, and then you can also list the inspection of
Oh,
the.
I think what they're saying here is if the frame is the skeleton, so we got the external walls and all that, then the rough mechanicals are the internal organs of your home. So it's maybe like, you know, how you partition that home off into maybe a bedroom, the non-roof,
Mm,
no non-structural or load-bearing walls.
mm.
I don't know. Maybe it's that. That's what I understand him to say. During
No,
this phase, during this
yeah.
phase, air conditioning, they're talking about heating, ventilation, plumbing, and electrical wiring.
Oh, yes, that can actually make sense. Like your air conditioning of the house. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Heating,
yeah,
ventilation.
that is mechanical. That is mechanical. Yeah.
They're also talking about plumbing and electrical wiring, which we already got as a.
Oh, yeah. So maybe.
But I'll delve further into it. I get the idea what you're saying. We need to go
Yeah,
into it. Yeah.
yeah. So, or you can actually, even if it's also talking about plumbing and electricals, you can leave it out and just mention those
The air
four. That
conditioning and the heating, ventilation. Okay.
yes. All right, and then the other activity which would then follow is the exterior wall, which has to be done by June 5, right? So now what I need to understand, or in order to hear from you, would you be able to show this on a diagram, with your activities being indicated by those bar graphs like we showed earlier on? Would you be able to do this from your side, to draw that diagram, also showing the time periods? Remember, it's 25 marks here. I think it'll be easy to do that. And then, so once you have defined your activities, it's easy to actually to draw this diagram. So remember, you don't have to make it as complicated as the one which is in your study guide. As long as it can show your activities, the time frames, and your deliverables, which is right at the end. What is it that you get to have achieved? That will be absolutely enough to score you 25 marks. If you,
I think you could, yeah.
If you also show, if you are not sure, you can also just share with me the diagram before you put it, and then I can be able to determine if it's okay or not. But come up with something which is in line with your study guide book in terms of the diagram. It doesn't have to be as complicated as that one, as long as it can show the activities, the time periods, and then also showing the deliverables. That is fine. That would actually earn you 25 marks. Okay. So let's move on. So I'm just hoping that the electricity doesn't switch off, right? So remember, I said if it does switch off, then we need to reconnect at 2:15 so that we finish off, right? Right. Provide a graphic representation of the project's timeline using any project management tool you studied. So you see, this is actually sort of like a repetition of questions, of these questions, right? Almost same information being asked differently. Okay, so if you look at that information which we have actually shared above, you can simply just extract the timeline only of that schedule which you would have done above, for it to represent your timeline. Okay.
So can I ask a question?
Yes.
Will it be fine if I use a bar graph?
Yes, that will still be fine. That will still be fine. You can actually use your bar graph, but your bar graph.
Okay. Mark, can you hear me?
Sorry, guys, I can hear you. I'm just needing to give out some work to the field, so I'm a bit in and here and there, but I can hear you guys.
Oh, I think. Oh, there's a possibility that
oh, maybe
load shedding has struck
load shedding kicked in. Yeah. Yeah, he said he's expecting my load shedding is only kicking in at 1600 hours, so I'm quite cool. And my little project that I'm doing, what I'll need to really talk to Tapiwa about is, I'm having a difficulty in answering. I can do what is required on a case study, but I'm finding it very, very difficult to align my own project, to the scenarios that they're playing in. Like in his case, some of the work activities we need to do. They say that the grandmother pulled out because of some emergency and couldn't supply. My grandmother is not. So I'm trying to figure out how I do that. So do I make a scenario basically where my sponsor, which is basically myself and my wife, I maybe lose my job and now I'm out of the box, and then how I'm going to get additional funds. So I'm trying to bring those two together. It's just that's what I'm finding. I'm finding the case studies, when there's a case study, a definite, to reference and apply the knowledge that we have. Can you hear me still? Tapiwa? Am I talking to myself here? Or Howard? Can you hear me? Oh my word, what happened? Oh no, I don't know what happened now.
So now I don't know how we'll continue. I think we'll have to maybe wait for Tapiwa to resume the class at 2. Can you hear me, Mark?
Yeah, I can hear you, Howard, but now, did you hear what I was saying? Are you having a similar problem applying the knowledge into your own project?
Am I what?
I'm having a problem applying, then they ask a question and everything relates onto that own project that you're doing. So I know you're busy with the library, right? So I'm finding when the scenario changes, I'm finding it difficult to, for example, where you said that the grandmother was one of the sponsors that then had a family emergency and that funding wasn't available, then you have to adapt your project according to that, and you answer everything. So I'm like, do I then just take that scenario that's asked and make a scenario in mind where basically myself and my wife will be basically for this UPS project that I'm doing with inverter, say maybe I lose my job or the finances, and then do I just adapt it?
Which activity? Is that activity 8, ne?
Now, well, everything is linked to that one. And I'm finding, the first one that we need, I'm finding, like I said, I find it very easy to look at a live case study and apply and answer the questions. But when I have to do it to my own,
I'm sorry, my network keeps on disconnecting. It's very unstable.
Oh, okay. But maybe we'll chat. But like you said,
can you hear me, Mark? My network is unstable. I can't hear you properly.
Oh, okay. Look, like you said, maybe Tapiwa did say that he's expecting load shedding. So I don't know, but he said we would dial in on the same link from what I remember, but maybe an hour later. But we don't want to waste time. So I don't know. You've got his number. Maybe he can just let us know. Is he on our group?
Oh, Tapiwa.
Yeah. Are you in communication with him?
Yeah, I have his number.
Yeah, maybe if you can just ask him to let us know when he's up again, and then we will dial in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just sent a message. I just forwarded a message to the group.
Okay. So I'll watch the group then, and once you notify us that he's back up, then I'll dial in again.
Okay, no problem. And then if you don't mind, because my network is unstable, you can send me a voice note on WhatsApp and ask a question, and then I'll respond with a voice note as well.
Okay, fixed stuff. Thanks, bud. Thanks.
No problem.
We'll chat later then. Okay, bye. Cheers.
Okay, bye. Bye, Vutali.
All right, so we will just continue from where we left. I'm just going to share my POE quickly. All right. Okay, I hope you can see my POE there. Right, so this is the question which we were now at, right? Whereby on question 2 on our formative activity 10. It says provide a graphic presentation of the project's timeline using any project management tool you have studied. So which would be the best project management tool, or the most popular one, or the most common one, which you are familiar with so far?
WBS.
WBS, right? So so this is the tool which you would have to use, and then you put it on a timeline, and then you show also the dates on which the project would have to be completed by. So just also bearing in mind, this is actually part 2 of the first question. So I think we've done so many of those WBS to an extent that this is now a repetition. And but what I like about it is those are free marks which you can score, considering that is something which we are very, very familiar with. Okay. All right, so let's move on to look at the next question on this activity. Okay, so we'll go on to look at activity 11, whereby we are going to be estimating the project value. So we'll start with looking at calculating payback, and then we'll also look at calculating the return on investment, right? So we are going to quickly refer to our guidebook. So I'll also share with you. So let's, I think it's on page 96, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, 96.
96, right? All right. So it says here, before starting a project, especially a project that will take a long time, project managers must estimate the project's payback period. So this means you need to estimate how long it takes for incoming returns to cover the cost, that is, right? Which is how long it takes to break even and make money. Payback period can be calculated using the following formula. So here we are looking at the initial investment outlay, or the initial capital outlay, with the initial amount which has been used to either to start that project, and now looking at the payback in terms of how much financial benefit we are going to receive from that project, and when exactly can we start saying that we have managed to break even. Meaning to say we've managed to cover costs and we are now making money, right? So this is represented by this formula, whereby it's y plus a over b by b, right? Of which in this formula represents the total net paid back in the entire payback year. So we've got an example which we have been given here, and the example reads as follows. All right. A mine wants to upgrade their facility by implementing an upgrade project. This will help them to double their capacity. The feasibility study estimates the project total cost will be 20 million, and the revenue expected, the revenue stream expected is 5 million per year, right? So the total cost of this project is 20 million, but in terms of revenue, which we'll be getting, it's 5 million per year. So how long will it take for us to cover this initial cost which would have spent on the project? So that's the payback period. That's what we are talking about. So you can see here, simply they've used the formula whereby the total amount is being divided by the revenue the annual revenue, right? So this means that we'll then be able to pay back from the upgrade of the project in 4 years, right? But after that now, so after this payback period, after we have completed, we have managed to sort of like manage to cover our costs, our initial costs. That means everything which we are going to get thereafter is now our profits, right? So it's simple mathematics here. Your total remaining to be paid back at the start of the payback year divided by the total paid back in the entire payback year. So your 20,000, your 20 million here is being divided by 5 million to get 4 years. So let's look at the example which we have got, the question which we have got on our POE, right? And we have to apply this same concept. All right. And I think my camera is also starting to flicker again. If it continues doing that, then I will also take it off, right? I don't know what's happening with it. All right. Let me share my POE. Right. So bearing in mind that that example which we have given, I want us to use that same formula to calculate here, right? So Joseph runs a manufacturing company. He receives a request for a project, but to run it successfully, he has to buy a very expensive machine. The machine costs 25,000, and a guarantee for up to and a guarantee for up to 10 years, right? And the machine will ensure that the work will be done quicker, and he will save 10,000 per year if he buys this machine. The project is to produce a product for a client for the next 3 years. Calculate the payback period for the machine using the formula explained in the learner guide. Remember to show your calculations. So what will be the simple mathematics here? Anyone to assist me there?
Y plus A divided by B. So it's the A divided by B is 25,000 divided by 10,000. But
sorry, if you can just repeat that.
Sorry, it's Y plus A divided by B in brackets. Is a formula.
Yes.
So that Y is going to be 0. The A will be 25,000 and the B will be 10,000.
Okay. All right.
So, which will equal 2.5 years, 2.5 years.
2.5 years. Okay. All right. No, that's good. What I would just want you to rectify there, where you said Y will be equal to 0. So Y remains Y, right? And then at the bottom, you just say Y is now 2.5 years, which then represents our number of years. But
okay, sorry, yeah.
Yes, but on a general note, what do you think of this investment? Remember, keeping in mind that the project is to produce a product for a client for the next 3 years.
I think it's worth it because
Yeah.
that machine will also it's guaranteed for up to 10 years. So you won't be able to. You will be able to use it for further projects.
100% correct. So it's worth investing in it because that one client which we currently have will still be able to cater for all the payback which has to be done, and then we can still use that same machinery for a number of years, considering that it's guaranteed for 10 years. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next one. So please make sure that you take notes as we go along so that you don't find yourself stuck. All right. Right. So now this question 2 here requires us to look at the return of investment. Right. So, but before we do that, let's look at the example which is in our study guide book so that we can be able to approach that one. Right. All right. So what is a return of investment? What is the return of investment? So this is a performance measure used to evaluate the efficiency of an investment or to compare the efficiency of a number of different investments. So to calculate the return of investment, you would need to use this formula which we have got here, which is, you can see it's indicated here as gain from the investment minus the cost of investment divided by the cost of investment. Right. So here you are simply looking at the profits of that investment minus the initial cost and then divided by the initial cost, right? And let's see if we've got an example here. I think we do have. Even if we don't, we can still calculate this. This is simple, right? Let's look at our question quickly, otherwise we'll waste time. Right, so Nadia won a project which she needs permanent premises. She buys a factory for 500,000. 2 years later, she sells the property for 1 million. Using the formula in your learner guide, calculate the return of investment. This is easy, right? So remember, when you're calculating these formulas, you need to put in the formula as is in the first place, right? Okay. So
Yes.
so remember our formula is the gain on the investment minus
Minus the
the cost of the investment divided by the cost of the investment. So if you are explaining that in figures, what are we going to have here?
It's 1 million, which is the gain from the investment, minus 500,000, which is the cost of investment, divided by 500,000, which is the cost of investment. So we'll have 500,000 over 500,000, which is equals to 1.
Okay, and if return of investment is equal to 1 in percentage terms, how would you explain that?
Yeah, I didn't finish this question. This is where I was stuck.
100%. 100%. So the return of investment here is 100%. So your question, especially on return of investment, always leave your final in percentage terms. So your final answer must always be in percentage terms. So it's 100% return of investment here. Okay. All right. So let's look at the other question here. Okay, all right. We are now on formative activity 12, right? So here I'm just going to touch on a topic. I think it's on page 98. So I'll quickly refer to my study guide again. Let's go on page 98. I think it's page 98. All right. All right. So there are connections between cost estimates and budgeting. They both show the cost of doing something. Estimating, however, informs the budgeting process of a project. So estimates and budget share the following elements. So these are the common things about estimates and budgets, right? They show direct labor expense, direct non-labor expenses, overhead expenses, the general and administrative expenses, your profits, and total billing. So remember, in most cases, with regards to budgets, there are some cases whereby you are only looking at the costs and you are not looking at the profits. And once there is a profit to be realized, it means that there are sales which are going to have to be happening, or alternatively, there must be some revenue which is being generated within that project. And in such a scenario, you are able to actually even create a profit and loss account, looking at the revenue minus the expenses, and then you get your gross profit, which you can also still deduct some overhead expenses to get your net profit. Okay. So what is the role of the project budget? So the project budget is a management, planning, and decision-making tool. It can be used to establish the overall budget baseline for the project, against which changes and expenditure will in the future be measured on. It also helps to develop, alongside the project schedule, the projected cost curve for each aspect of and work package, right? It also helps to establish a reference point of variance analysis following the performance of individual elements and tasks to be assessed through the duration of the project. And it also helps moderate the spending of those in charge of individual elements of the project, right? So that's the role of a project budget. So now let's look at our question here, right? Okay, so use the information provided below and develop a project budget. Okay, so your community leader asks you to assist with a local food drive for the elderly. The local church receives donations from a well-known supermarket every day. The ladies club from church then uses these donations to cook 100 meals for the elderly in the community. These meals, sorry about that, these meals are then distributed to the elderly using the church van. The church has the facilities to cook the food, and the team of cooks are volunteering their time. So meaning to say all the cooks who are volunteering to help us, they are not paid for, right? They did ask that the van picks them up in the morning and brings them to the church to do their work. So meaning to say those cooks, they have to be picked from their homes, and then they have to be brought to the church to do the work, right? They usually find their way home either through public transport or through friends, right? One of the wealthy church members said that she will donate an amount of money to cover the costs of the project every month, but she needs to know how much money she needs to provide every month. The community leader asks you to work out the costs of the project so that he can let the sponsor know. Okay, so this is the scenario which we have, right? The main deliverable of this project is to actually to feed how many people? How many people do we have to feed in this community?
100.
100 people, yes. So we have to cook 100 meals for the elderly on a daily basis. That's our main deliverable there, right? So now develop a budget for the first month of the project using the template below. So remember, here we are simply looking at the costs, right? So what are the costs? Which costs will be involved here? Let's have a list. We've got 10 marks, right? Which costs will be involved in this in this project?
Okay, on my side, it's going, obviously it's going to, they have to cook, it's going to be mealie meal, it's going to be meat, vegetables, and then there's soup, and then we also need petrol for transporting the ladies that will cook, for transporting them from their homes to church.
Okay. Anything else you can add on? What about the utensils which you use? Your
Electricity.
yes, utensils, the electricity as well. We can count it in. That is if you know, it's if there will be a way to be able to calculate the amount of usage separately from the whole church. Because remember, these people, they are cooking at the church. So if there is a way to actually calculate it, that would also be very, very important to include it. I think that can also be done. And what else can we add on? How did you add or transport for coming to the church, right?
Yes, it's
Okay.
petrol, yeah.
Yeah, so if you can come up with at least 5 of these line items, that would be fine, you know. So what I also want you to do is have a unit cost, right? Especially on things like your mealie meals, your meat, you need to have your unit cost as well as the quantities which you'll be buying, all right, so that at least you'll be able to have your totals. So you have a unit cost. So if it's a price per kg, you have that price per kg and indicate the number of kgs which you buy. For instance, you can have a line item which says 10 kgs of meat at a unit cost of 110 Rand per kg, and then you calculate your total. All right. So I'm just giving you an example here. So you need to have a unit cost, but then you will have some costs which you will not be able to calculate, maybe the unit cost of each. Like let's say maybe like that for electricity, maybe you might not be able to come up with a unit value for it, but you can if you know how much the current rates are going for that electricity, and if you can estimate exactly how much electricity you would need. Fuel, let's say maybe if you are to use fuel, then you'd also need to calculate that fuel in terms of the liters which you would require. But what you have to bear in mind when you're calculating these costs, this budget is a month's budget. It's a month's budget. So your estimates have to be realistic for 100 meals for a month. Okay. I think this is it's quite simple to list these expenses, right? Am I right? Or any questions which do?
Can I ask something? So,
can
I ask something?
Yes, please.
So it's for 1 month.
It's for 1 month.
Oh, Okay. So I have to fix my calculations here.
Yeah, I also misunderstood that.
I said milli will be 15 kg. That's how I calculated mine. I said milli will be 15 kg and all that. So I have to, yeah.
That won't do because it will be for a whole month. So now you need to redo your calculations and bearing in mind that this is for the whole month. So
okay.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Sorry. So is this 100 meals every day, 7 days a week for the month?
Yes, 7 days a week for the month.
Oh, okay. I'm totally misunderstood that. I thought it was just the 100 meals for that month.
Yeah. So if you had already have the figures for the day, then you'd either have to multiply it by 30 or 31, whichever you prefer. But I would say rather calculate with the most days, so that you use that as a measure stick, because then if you calculate with 30 days, what of the months which will be in the which will be having 31 days. So rather use 31 days to calculate your figures. Okay, so the figures which you have got for the daily expenses, just multiply that by 31 days. So so if you, let's say if it's a line item, and then if you would say fuel for the month, then you'd have maybe let's say your unit cost per liter, maybe let's say it's 20. How much is the fuel now?
24 rand, 22 rand.
Yeah, it ranges there, 20 to 24, depending on what you're currently using. And so you'd have that as your unit cost, and then you would have an estimate of your monthly fuel. Maybe let's say monthly you're going to need let's say maybe you're going to need 45 liters. So then you calculate that amount, and then you have your total. And then once you've got all your listed line items, then you add your totals, then you've got a complete budget there. Okay. Let's look at number 2. List the new team members you need for the project and develop a Raki matrix or a Rachi matrix for the project using the template below. So a Rachi matrix or a Raki matrix, it's a matrix which literally shows the responsibility of people who are in your project, right? So it would list the activities which are involved, and then each person, as you can see here, it requires you to list the name of the person there, the name of the person, name of the person, name of the person, name of the person. But now, on each person which you would have listed there, you will then also now be required to indicate using this key. You see, we've got a key which is given here in terms of the representation on the Raki matrix. So of which, forgive my pronunciation, I know a lot of people laugh at me. So R represents a person responsible for the task. A, it represents a person accountable for the task. C, that's the person to be consulted. And I, this is the person to be kept informed. Okay, so let's have an example, right? So let's say I'll have an example here. Let me see if I can type here. Am I able to type? Okay, let me see. Okay, so let me see if I can type. So let's say I have Tapioca here, right? So let's say what would be the first task? Driving the cooks, right? Let's say in this scenario, using this key, I am the person who's responsible for this task, right? So that would mean that I'm the R. Oh, sorry. I'll be the R here, right? So let's have another person, right? So let's say right. So let's say Mark. So but now myself being the responsible person, Mark now is accountable because he's in charge of the books. He's the person who actually gives me the money to go and buy that fuel. I'm just a driver, right? So meaning to say, Mark now becomes A, right? So let's have another person. So let's say Howard, right? So what other responsibilities are now left? We've got responsible, accountable. What other? What's the other two? What's the other two? Come on, guys. Don't tell me you don't.
Informed.
Sorry?
Consulted and informed.
Consulted and be informed. Okay. Right. So let's say, you know, Howard is also part of the finance committee, which looks at these finances. So Howard will be the person to be consulted, right? So that means that will be our C, right? So let's say now in this whole project we have got Anthony. Forgive me for the spelling on the name, right?
It's fine, no problem.
I know there's something missing there. It doesn't look right. So let's say Anthony. Anthony is now the overseer of this whole project. He's the project manager. So meaning to say, all the activities or anything that has to happen in terms of our project, Anthony has to be informed, right? So here it becomes NI. You see?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Isn't the project manager the one that's responsible for?
I didn't hear the end of your question. Howard, you might have to repeat the question.
Oh, I'm sorry, my network is bad. I'm asking, isn't the
We can't hear you at all, eh?
Even now?
Yeah. I don't know if the other guys can hear you. Maybe it's from my side.
Anthony Mark, can you hear me?
No.
I can hear you. You dropped off, but now I can hear you clearly.
Okay, if you can just repeat it again.
Okay, I'm asking, isn't the project manager the one responsible for the whole project?
Okay, yes, in some cases, but in a scenario whereby maybe that project falls under, like, let's say maybe in this case, maybe it's falling under a church. It might mean that even though you are still the project manager, maybe you still have got to report to maybe your pastor or your reverend or whichever the case you want to call, you might want to call the person. So there might be other people who are above that project manager. Like for instance, in a company setup, you as the project manager, you still have got to be answerable to your executive manager, to executive managers as well, who have to give decisions on the project.
Okay, no problem. I get that. So the person, but isn't the person that must be informed at all times? Isn't it the stakeholder, the person who funds the project?
Yes, it can also be a stakeholder, but here I just gave an example, a simple example, which is not including the stakeholders. But yes, you can actually put a stakeholder as somebody who can be informed. So remember, as a project, like in this case, all these individuals are also stakeholders. Remember, we also said people who work in the, who are involved in that project, they are also stakeholders. So even all these people who are indicated here, they are also stakeholders. So and so you can also include other stakeholders as well, which you might prefer, because the hierarchy, it actually shows responsibility in terms of stakeholders. So this can either be your internal stakeholders, it can be part of the people who are working on the project, or it can be external stakeholders whom you have to inform. Like let's say, also considering this example which was given above, which other person would you keep informed if this project is running? You know, looking at the example which we have been given above, which other person can you also include here? You can also include the sponsor, and that sponsor also will have to be kept informed. And you and on this hierarchy matrix diagram, you can actually have several people with the same responsibilities as well. Like for instance, you can actually have 2 or more people whom you have to keep on informing there on your list of stakeholders. Okay. So you would have to list your activities, and then you need to now allocate their responsibilities there. And they don't necessarily have to be in that order, right? In that order to say the first one to be who's in charge of the responsibilities, always on that first column, like that. Like for instance, if let's come up with another activity. What other activity can we have? Let's have an example of another activity.
Driver.
Sorry?
The driver to transport the food.
To transport the food. Okay, so let's leave that here. So cooks and the food, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Let's have another one.
Okay, the cooks, the guys
The
Let's say
cooking,
making one meal the day.
Sorry, making
say the one meal for the day. How would
okay, so
break up the hierarchy?
The cooking.
Yeah.
Right. So let's say now, in terms of our people who will be cooking, let's also have a list of our people who will be cooking. So, and some of these people whom we have already listed, they might also be involved in cooking, right? Let's say, okay. Let's say Louisa.
Careful not to be chauvinistic now.
All right, okay. But remember, we said we are still to allocate. Let's just list solo.
I'm just joking.
No, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, it might not come out as right, you know. And then okay. I'm very bad with the spellings. Right, and who's the other person? Okay, let's say. All right, let's say, and which other person can we?
I'll be a cook as well.
Okay, but we have already put you there. So let's have one more person. Let's say we can even mention a stakeholder there. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a name. It can be somebody, who, you know, a stakeholder whom we can just list there. Who else? Okay, let's just list another stakeholder there. Let's say the pastor or reverend. Hey, that's not the spelling of pastor. Pastor or reverend. I don't know which one is commonly used, right? Whether it's pastor or reverend or a minister or a, you know, a man of God. I don't know. I'm not really sure. Okay, so you can use whichever you want. So let's say now on this, let's complete this because each box has to be completed on the matrix, right? So let's say in this case, we've got a group of these people. We have mentioned the responsibility on the driving of driving the cooks, as well as food. Okay, so let's have the responsibility in this case of the driving of cooks and food. What would be the responsibilities of these others?
So here's the question that I wanted to ask. The van, the van or the car, it belongs to the church. So the person responsible, the person that they must consult if they want to use it is the pastor or the reverend.
So
Okay.
you are saying he must also be consulted.
Yes.
Remember, there is more. You can actually have more people using with the same responsibilities. So it doesn't mean that if you've already have got Howard as we have to consult. It doesn't mean that we can't also consult the pastor. Okay. So you also, if it means we are informing Anthony, it doesn't necessarily mean Anthony is the only person that has to be informed. Okay. So we've got that. And so what of these other members? What do we do? So maybe all the other members will just have to be either informed or consult.
Will they not be responsible for cooking and?
Okay, no, we remember each activity
for the driving, driving and the food.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand. Yeah.
So let's say we just keep them informed.
Yeah.
We just keep them informed as well, and then we just keep them informed. Right. Let's now come to cooking. Let's say maybe myself, I'm also besides the driving, I also have to cook, right? And so that means I am responsible, right, for this particular activity. And then we mentioned that Anthony is also Mark is also the accountant, but he's also still responsible for cooking, right? So that means that will be another.
Thank you so much for accommodating my request.
All right. So let's say in this case now, all right, now let's leave the pastor to be accountable for that. Okay, so we can actually have all these people actually being responsible for this, right? You can actually have it like that. All these people, they are actually responsible for this.
Can I ask one last question?
I want you to add on to the discussion, not asking only.
The thing is, obviously, the POEs won't be the same. On mine, I don't know about the on the section where we must consult someone. On my POE, I don't have on this that I've done, I don't have someone that I can consult. Because obviously I chose grocery shopping, cooking, driving, delivery, and there's a budget. Ne? And then on the names, I have a sponsor in the supermarket, the cook, and the accountant, which is me, who will be doing the budget, the church driver, and the community leader.
Yes, it's possible to not have someone who will be accountable for you can actually have one role which is not involved, or even more. If you look at our activity for cooking, there's only 2 roles which are there.
Yes.
You see, so we left out all the others.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you look at the second activity there, we've got cooking, and it's only responsible, then the pastor is accountable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's possible to have that kind of a setup.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
I would, the way I'm understanding what's being said here is basically we've got tasks or activities, right? So this must happen, and according to that, we're gonna assign this hierarchy or hierarchy or role for a specific activity. So you have to read it from left to right. So cooking, who's going to do the cooking? And so there is given the responsible person, responsible, given everybody there that's going to, and then one person is accountable for the final meal, I suppose, or something. So am I reading it correct?
Yes.
And then there'll be cooking, and there will be like the collection of the staff that's volunteering. There will be certain things. It's all different tasks in this project, and we're going to assign. And what I'm understanding is you cannot give. There's only one. You can have many people responsible, but you could also even have multiple people accountable. I don't know. But there's that higher order of I don't know how to explain it. Accountability or responsibility using this hierarchy thing. Am I understanding it correct?
So yes, you are understanding it correctly. So this is simply to allocate responsibilities of the activities which will be involved in that project. So that's simply what we are doing here. So if we are looking at this hierarchy matrix, if we say okay, so something maybe the chefs couldn't come through today, we are able to quickly go onto our hierarchy matrix to say, okay, so who's accountable for, who will be the best person to ask with regards to why the cooks couldn't come? Then it has to be, the mark would have to be answerable why that didn't happen. And if we had already allocated the funds and the fuel to the driver, then I have to be answerable in terms of my responsibility, which I haven't fulfilled. So it's simply allocating the responsibilities in terms of what function they hold for that particular activity or task. Okay. Right, so you can come up with other activities there, and then you can also then have the lists of responsibilities there which you would put. Okay, but now what you have to bear in mind is how many marks we have got is 10 marks. So I think if you would come up with at least 5, that would still save you, that will be able to get you those 10 marks. Okay. All right, so let's move on. Right, so I am going to quickly go on to, so we are now moving on activity 13, right, which is the last one which we have got to do. So I just want us to quickly look at page 104 of our study guide. All right, so we are now looking at 6.75, which is control costs, right? So according to the Project Management Institute, which is the 2017 edition on page 258, project cost control includes the following actions. So it includes influencing the factors that create changes to be authorized cost baseline, ensuring that all change requests are acted on in a timely manner, managing actual changes when and as they occur, ensuring that cost expenditures do not exceed the authorized funding by period, by work breakdown structure component, by activity, and in total for the project. Okay, so that's an important point. I'll just repeat it again. On control costs, ensuring that cost expenditures do not exceed the authorized funding by period, by work breakdown structure component, by activity, and in total for the project. Okay. And then monitoring cost performance to isolate and understand variances from approved cost baseline. Monitoring work performance against funds expended, preventing unapproved changes from being included in the reported cost of or resource usage. Informing appropriate stakeholders of all approved changes and associated costs and bring expected cost overruns within acceptable limits. So if you look at all these things which have been listed here, you can simply they mean more or less the same thing, right? As in controlling, ensuring that your expenses, they do not go beyond the expected budgeted costs, right? And if there is any variances or changes, then it has to be in line with our approved cost baseline, right? So this is what it's simply saying. That's what it means by controlling costs. It basically means to control your expenses, so that they can actually be in line with your set budget. Yeah, and if there is any variances, then there must be justifiable variances. And what would be the reason for doing this, for controlling costs? Anyone to chip in?
So that we don't go over the budget.
Yes, so that we don't make losses, so that we don't go over. If you go over the budget, you make losses, right? Right, so in order to control the costs of the project, you have to monitor expenditure throughout the implementation of the project. Right, so what do you use to monitor this? By using your cost management plan, the project budget, and performance baseline measurements. Those three items: cost management plan, the project budget, and performance baseline measurements. Okay. Right. So let's now look at the question now, at the question in our activity. Right. The first question: briefly explain how you would monitor the cost associated with the delivery project. So briefly is 3 marks. Anyone would want to summarize? Anyone? We just discussed that now. So, and I even rephrased it in my own terms. So I just want your own understanding. So remember all those activities which I've just mentioned now, they in summary, explain those activities.
Obviously, we'll need a cost management plan so that we can be able, what I mean in that sense, obviously, there's activities. Those activities, we must obviously note down how much they would cost, and then we also need to understand that if we assign resources, maybe human resources to those activities, how much those human resources will cost.
So, okay, so simply you are looking at your expenses so that they remain in line with our budget. And if there are any expenses which will go beyond the budgeted cost, if there are any changes, then we'll have to justify those changes. What's the reason for those changes? So that at least we can be able to keep in line with the budget. That's as simple as this. You are simply monitoring your costs, right? But you need to explain it in a different way. So if you look at those all those points which I mentioned there, that's what we are talking about here. What we mentioned here on that document. That's what you are explaining. In brief, it's 3 marks. Okay.
Cool, got it.
Yes, you can go ahead.
So basically what you said is basically your main thing is obviously the budget. You stick within the budget. Don't go out, otherwise that means there's losses, and have a plan in place if there is a form of deviation to basically just keep the cost within what was being approved already in the plan.
Yes. So that's the purpose. That's how you would actually monitor your costs, by checking if your current expenses in terms of the activities which you are doing, if they are in line with the budgeted expenses. If there's any variances or deviations, then you have to justify those variances. And but in other words, you have to try by all means to limit to eliminate any variances or deviations.
And that basically entails constant monitoring throughout the project as it's in its execution phase, that everything stays within budget.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Then make a list of all the documents you would need to monitor the cost of the project. So Howard, you've already mentioned one. I want you to repeat that one.
It's the cost management plan.
Yes, the cost management plan. What's the second one?
I'm really short, but you mentioned 3.
Okay, let me show you right where you find this. You see in this, after we have listed all these project control, where it says project cost control includes, there is that line there where it says, it starts with, in order to control the cost of the project, you have to monitor expenditure throughout the implementation of the project by using the cost management plan, the project budget, and performance baseline measurements. You see, it's already given for you.
Yep.
Okay. So those are the 3 which you need there. Right. Let's go to number 3. So the project changed over after 1 month. The supermarket, although they still provide the church with the raw ingredients of the meals, explains that they cannot send the delivery truck to the church for delivering the food. They ask that the team collects the food daily from their premises. The supermarket is in town and it will increase petrol costs for the program. Use the budget you developed for formative activity 13 and develop a second month's budget showing the changes to the project. Okay, so this is now the second month. Our supermarket, which used to deliver, the items which we use to cook the food, they now say that they can no longer do the delivering part for us. So now we now have got to fetch it ourselves. So despite the usual routine for fetching our cooks and probably maybe delivering the food, we now have got another extra route which we have got to make, which is going to fetch these goods from town now and again, right?
Extra expense.
So there's an extra
expense.
There's an extra expense on fuel.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you are to use this project, the budget, what are you going to do? What do you think will be the difference with the one which you have listed earlier?
Petrol cost is going to increase.
Petrol cost is going to increase. So the amount of fuel which you used to use is now going to be totally different. So all the other items can remain the same, but your cost for fuel, your cost on fuel is now going to change. So you can still relist everything as is, but change on the line item for fuel. You now have got to improvise. Let's say maybe initially you were using 45 liters per week. You are now going to need to use let's say, for example, 90 liters, right? So you now need to put that 90 liters as the difference. And that would also obviously affect your total cost as well. So your unit cost will remain the same, but your total cost, it would definitely change.
Christmas coming earlier, so you're getting 8 marks for nothing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Right. Let's move on to 4. Write a short project notification to the sponsor, the lady who donates the money, explaining the changed amount needed for the project. Remember when we had to come up with the addendum? Remember that question?
Yeah.
So this is literally the same thing.
Yeah.
So you are informing your sponsor with regards to the changes which now is going to be happening, and which will affect our budget. So in brief, how would you explain it, or what would you mention?
Obviously, I'd mentioned that due to the petrol prices rising, the cost for the total project has changed, because the amount of petrol that we need has increased, and the prices of the project has also increased.
Okay, there was one part of your wording which was not right. So the petrol price did not increase, but the cost increased.
Oh,
You
yeah.
see, the cost increased because of the route. Now we've got another additional route in terms of driving to collect the goods and bringing them to change.
Oh,
okay.
Yes.
Do we have to go into detail and basically explain that because we got the food delivered freely before by the supermarket, and now obviously, do we have to tell the sponsor that?
Yes, because remember, your sponsor, this sponsor who's coming in, has got no access to this information. So this lady has got no access to this information which you have. So you have to explain it clearly so that that person understands exactly what's happening in this current scenario.
Why we want to milk it for more money?
Yes. All right. So that's it. That's it with our activities. But if you've got any challenges, you can still reach out. Okay.
So,
thank you very much.
So how will we know that we've passed the POEs and all that?
I'm sure Mr. Butali will keep you informed with regards to that. I'm not sure when what's the dates in terms of releasing the marks and etc. But Mr. Butali will be the right person to answer you on that. Mr. Butali, are you still there?
Oh, okay.
Mr.
What's
Butali?
the chances of being able to do it again? I mean, I'm actually just getting to grips with what's happening in this course, and I think my first one was a total disaster.
Yeah. So your first one, did you also get the chance to redo it?
Now, I saw a note that came in that said I need to hand it in last week. I thought, but I've already missed the deadline and I was given the extension. But if I can do it again, I'll gladly do it because I've got a total different, I understand more obviously now than what I did then.
I know there is a chance to resubmit, but like I said, those now become administrative issues.
Oh,
so, yeah. But I know there is a chance for you to resubmit, so you can still resubmit.
Oh, that's great to know. The other thing I just want to ask you before I'm understanding the case. You know, when you give a case to analyze and apply the knowledge that you're transferring to us and teaching us, I'm finding that quite easy. But in my specific project, I'm finding it a bit challenging because maybe further down in the question, I find they might ask something. For example, one section that I did where so the sponsor happened to be the grandmother that now pulled out. So maybe that could have worked, but it's not going to work in my scenario. So do I just ensure I create a similar scenario? For example, my finances maybe are not as planned because maybe I lost my job, or my wife lost her job, and now I need to, would I create a scenario to adapt to my project?
Yes, if you feel like maybe because of what you might have written earlier on your earlier project description is limiting you in terms of now coming up with the other answers of the follow-up activities.
That's it, yeah.
Then you might then have to revisit that. I'm sure there will be some space where you can actually incorporate that. And that
so
means
tailor my original to adapt to the question, or can I change the question to adapt to the original?
Yes, so that at least you'll be able to have some answers on the other follow-up activities.
Okay, cool.
All right. All right. I think we are done. This is actually our last class for the year, if I'm not mistaken. So meaning to say, we'll meet again next year. I'm not sure if I've got some of the modules which I will be doing with you guys next year. But yeah, that would be nice to meet up again next year and continue with our classes. All right. No, thank you very much, gentlemen. I really appreciate your participation. It really means a lot. And I also the other guys who are also not here today, please just encourage them to log on to that recording. I'm sure maybe they might have got busy with work commitments. Or maybe probably they shied away because I had insisted on participation today. So yeah, just tell them to access the recording so that at least they can also be able to benefit. And if they've got any questions, they can also just reach out. But I'm sure they can access this recording. All right. No, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your week. And unfortunately, if there's anything which you might do with the questions which you have raised earlier with administrative issues, please don't hesitate to contact Mr. Botali.
Okay, thank you so much for the explanation. Thank you much.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
You can log off so that I can be able to stop the recording.